Hi, everyone. Welcome to Maddox Show and Tell series, where we bring the top customer success teams to show us what they're showing their customers to drive real results. This isn't hypotheticals, it's not just best practices. We'll be seeing exactly what they're using. Today, I'm excited to introduce Brendan Whitaker, VP of Client Services at eTip. Brendan, thank you for joining us. For those not familiar, what does eTip do?
Thank you. Yeah, we are. eTip is a digital tipping solution. So
Mhm,
when I say that, there's a couple of different use cases,
mhm.
but most prominently for hotels. So think housekeeping.
Yeah.
Housekeeping cleans your room. Instead of having cash, now you can leave a QR code next to the bed. So it's that digital tipping, the QR code that goes next to bed, primarily for housekeeping.
Mhm.
So that way guests can conveniently leave a tip. Um, in addition, there's often use cases for valet, which is a big
Mhm.
one, especially for me. I never carry cash, so I'm like embarrassed to go to valet. I'm
What
like,
is cash?
yeah. So, yeah, they just show that QR code, they can tip.
Mhm.
And we're built for the enterprise serving the individual. So, for an operator, it gives them those insights and those data points to be able to attract talent, retain talent, and motivate them. So, they'll be able to see all these data points and know what the average tip size is for a possible new hire and so forth.
That is so cool because definitely tips, I would assume, are a black hole just because it's mostly cash. So awesome you guys are bringing
In those
visibility.
scenarios, it's yeah, mostly cash because there's no point of sale. So if there is
Mhm.
a point of sale, we don't go in there and muddy the waters. This is all for those services where there's no point of sale. Tour guides is another great kind of use
Yeah.
case. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, no, totally makes sense. Tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are today as VP of Client Services.
Yeah, so I was fortunate enough to join eTip a few years ago, and
Mhm.
as you can probably tell, it's all sort of fairly new in the world. QR codes became very sort of prominent and more commonplace during the pandemic, especially with restaurants and menus and so forth. Or now wherever you go, if you want to like log into Netflix, Hulu, etc., you can just use those QR codes. So it's becoming more prominent.
Mhm.
But our founder actually established the company when he was at a hotel. He just had a little bit of change on him, left the change. I
Mhm.
was kind of embarrassed actually by the little change that he had, but he got such a nice note from the housekeeper of what it meant to her and her family to have anything. So he just thought there's got to be an easier way to do this and to show gratuity. So it's a
Mhm.
big gap there. And sure enough, we've been able to partner with major corporations like Hilton, Marriott, Hyatt, et cetera,
Mhm.
to be able to launch this to multiple hotels across the country.
Got it. That's so cool to hear. I especially like how it's rooted in an actual interaction. But
Yeah.
when it comes to your professional career, I know you recently got promoted. Congratulations. But
Thank
what
you.
was that journey like?
Yeah, so I mean, going back in time, so if we go back to previous world,
Mhm.
I started really a few different companies, but
Mhm.
most recently was Grubhub, which
Yeah.
I was there for about 11 years. So when I first started there, there was no such thing as client success. We're talking like before there was even really apps were prominent. So this is before DoorDash, before Uber Eats, all of that stuff.
Mhm.
So client success was kind of like a future thinking at the moment. So we were still sales. So we would sell the accounts and then manage them. And after you do that for a couple of years, it's like you're just playing defense. You got so many accounts in your book of business, you don't have time to prospect and get new accounts. So we're like, clearly there's a need for a post-sale team. So we
Mhm.
established a post-sale team at the time was called account management.
Yeah.
So you're like direct, your main point of contact. We're going to help you with
Mhm.
everything and everything. So we did that for a few years, and then client success became to start to take off. And it's
Mhm.
more about seeing the client goals, objectives, et cetera, and making sure they realize those goals and objectives. So we really rebranded as client success and
Mhm.
started off as an individual contributor at that time.
Mhm.
Uh, but because it was brand new, it was a founding member. So I was able to be a building block or a witness to the entire post-sale cycle. So we were able to do that from scratch and write playbooks and so forth. So it just kind of built off of that to
Mhm.
becoming a manager over time. From there, trying new things with an enablement team, digital team,
Mhm.
so really scalable solutions that would help the whole team because when you have 5 people, 10 people managing 5,000 accounts, you got to do something digital to assist that. So really just kind of evolved over time as client success has evolved over time.
Yeah, it sounds like you had a front row seat to the transformation from like a world without client success to a world with client
Yeah.
success, and now the next iteration of digital, which
Yeah.
is kind of a great segue because the thing you're going to show us today is eTip's monthly review, which is part of your digital motion, if I'm correct.
Yeah, exactly that. So we're kind of in the same boat with eTip. We're essentially built for defense. So we want a way to really go from reactive to proactive.
Mhm.
In addition, from let's say turn fighters, maybe to cross sellers, but really to be that digitally led, human assisted. And we talk about our kind of mission of the
Mhm.
CS team is really to pave the way for a successful journey. So that's kind of where it all starts. And when we say successful journey, it's kind of synonymous with the road to success. So we just want to make sure everybody has a smooth ride. So, we'll proactively look out for gaps, for obstacles, for potholes, and then we'll work with development team, sales, marketing, et cetera, to build tools, foundations, and data that will plug those holes, remove those obstacles, and bridge those gaps. So
I
really, we just want the client to go to like where they need to go in an efficient and effective manner, which is kind
Mhm.
of like a long way of saying seeing the value. So being able to reinforce the value and show the value for
Mhm.
something that they're paying for is really key and crucial to having that healthy client.
I feel like that's the dream. I feel like so many teams are just like, okay, there's a pothole and we're just going to
Yeah.
ride right through it. So awesome that your team is thinking that way. Before we dive into the
Yeah.
monthly review, I did want to pick your brain on a few customer content strategy things. So, what
Yeah.
content have you seen historically just move the needle for you and your team and why?
Yeah. I will start with the account review, the monthly business review slash quarterly business review.
Hmm.
Why? Because a few things. It's the core feature, but it's the largest audience. So it goes out to every single admin that we have. So
Hmm.
the net is very wide there. Two, it reinforces that value. So there's
Hmm.
a lot of people associated with an account that might not log into the dashboard, look at the numbers, see what they're kind of getting out of it.
Yeah.
So because they're paying for it, they want to see the value of it. So by sending these, it really spreads that word, which in turn
Mhm.
gets forwarded to other people and so forth. So it's been phenomenal. And I will say, in addition, something that was unexpected with these was just account maintenance. So in the hotel world, there can be a lot of turnover,
Hmm.
particularly in the GM role. So when we send these out, it gets forwarded to the new GM. So they'll say, "Oh, I'm this person's no longer here. I'm the new GM," and then we can add them to our system. We can train them and get them caught up
Hmm.
to speed. Because that's the thing with accounts. If there's new personnel, then sometimes those programs can kind of fall under the radar and not get passed through.
So accurate. It's like the ghost of the internal champion. Like, how do
Yeah.
you get past and find the new one? Um, what part of the customer journey do you feel like deserves more attention? Is not getting enough love?
I, I can say they all do, but I mean, at some point and to some degree, they really do, but there's no such thing as a first impression. So really the onboarding adoption to build that trust, that confidence, that usage, if that slips, then it's just an uphill battle from there.
Hmm.
So what we've done over time is to be able to kind of help scale that out as we get more and more clients is utilize Matic to help with the onboarding and the adoption. So one of the slides I can show here in a second is, our 1 week check-in, our 2 week check-in. Previously, what we would do is we'd go into a dashboard, we'd take a screenshot of their progress so far, do the template, pop it in there and send it. But now we can just automate it with triggers and conditions to automatically take that off our plate, which has been huge. So onboarding adoption is certainly one that we've putting more focus into. But
Hmm.
our next kind of evolution is really just doing all those milestones, the celebrations, like your anniversaries, your in our world, like your 1,000th tip, your 10,000th
Yeah.
tip, that kind of stuff. Or if they just have maybe a large tip, like, oh, you just got a $500 tip last week. Amazing. Share it with the team. So kind of call out those milestones is kind of the next evolution for us.
As a marketing person, I love to hear about stuff like that because it really is brand building too. And marketing is not the only one who can build a brand. It's that connection, the relationships, and creating those like delightful moments. So I'm a little
Yeah.
jealous y'all are doing that. And then the last question before I pass it over to you, what are the big no-nos when it comes to customer content?
No nos for customer content. I mean, dirty data is something we can kind of easily reference, sending a client the incorrect information. So
Mhm.
some data points that aren't theirs could be, troublesome. In our world, I knew this before we even implemented Atmatic, was the naming convention on accounts. So if you take like a Fairfield Inn in Portland, there might be three or four in Portland, Oregon, and three or four in Portland, Maine. So we needed a unique identifier. So we utilized that in the Matic system, which is a UUID to be able to
Mhm.
map correctly. So that was one, was just making sure that the data is going to the right people and recipients because the audience is so large, we can't compromise there. And then two, one thing we kind of went back and forth on, and I will say I love interacting with the Matic team and just having those sounding boards and best practices from other clients and so forth. Was whether or not we kind of target dormant clients, clients that are maybe falling behind or not really up to the benchmark or average level that we want to see them at. The main reason where I was a little hesitant in the beginning was just kind of waffling and thinking like, oh, is this going to increase churn requests and so
Mhm.
forth? Because they're seeing they're not getting the tips. But ultimately, the flip side of that was something we just mentioned. There might just be a change in personnel. Maybe it's a new person that came on
Mhm.
board to manage the program. They don't even know about it. So that far outweighed the chance of churn. And come out when we started implementing the low performer emails, there was no churn requests or anything like that. It was like, oh yeah, this is going to increase the earnings for our employees. We need to be using this. So we were able to educate and create awareness around the program and what they need to do to kind of relaunch it and revive it. So that's been huge. So those no-nos that we were kind of initially thinking about just became yes, yeses, and we're good.
That's such a perfect example because I think when I've seen some of the best customer content, they don't shy away from bad data, but use it as an opportunity to educate, like y'all are doing. I know I
Yeah.
said that was my last question before I pass off to you, but one quick follow-up. What advice would you give people who are maybe afraid of like their data being too dirty and like not perfect?
Yeah, I mean, you just have to start somewhere. There's no good, you're 100% is kind of wishful thinking in terms of cleanliness. So just those little hygiene projects you can do here and there to make sure and spot check.
Mhm.
But the main thing is really just getting into it and making a change where you can make a change.
Mhm.
Um, and then, don't be afraid just to go out and, adjust from there, essentially.
Awesome. Okay, now I will shut up and let the viewers get to their favorite part of this little show. So I'll pass it over to you.
Perfect. So what I'm going to pull up is what we utilize for the monthly business review / quarterly business review. We have sort of a couple of different audiences for this. One could be on the parent level, where we do a roll up of all the stats. And then two could be on the hotel level or location level of just their unique particular location. One thing I'll say when talking about what we do for these reviews, when we first started, I was in default mode thinking we're just going to do a deck because that's what we know. Like when we send these manually, we'll create a deck, we'll attach it as an attachment, and then we'll send it. But then talking to the Matic team, particularly Reshma and so forth, they just had some great insights and especially made us think about our audience, hotel operators for the most part, always on the go. They're really putting out fires and dealing with certain things with guests and employees and so forth. So are they going to take the time to open an attachment and look through in a deck? It's a little risky there. So putting all the same data points into the body of an email totally made sense. Our open rates are fantastic. So it's really the proof is in the pudding that we didn't need a deck. We just needed to put the data points into something they could easily scroll through on the go and see those insights. So here's an example of what we do, at least for the quarterly. This is on the parent level, is we created a template in Matic with the help of the team to kind of just do like a brief intro, what we're looking at. This is going to be a look back at Q1. So awesome job. Can't wait to see these results climb even higher in Q2. And then again, to reinforce the value, again, this is something they're paying for. And from an operational level, this is a program that is going to help them attract talent, retention, motivate the team, and so forth. So it's really at the end of the day, increasing the earnings for the employees and in turn, increasing the guest satisfaction. Employees that receive tips are more productive, more motivated. They see those earnings come in. So they're, increasing the level of cleanliness and productivity and so forth. So the bonus points or the positives are kind of like a full circle moment for all involved. So you can see with this particular client, they've had a great quarter, a bunch of tips. We also include the transaction counts, the average tip size. One thing we talk about too, when we talk about kind of use cases on how they can share the data with the team, obviously to motivate them to celebrate special moments. But again, as we talk about recruiting and hiring in the hotel world, if you're an employee that's not getting tips at your hotel, you might jump ship and go to another hotel. So in terms of recruiting, when you have the data points like average tip size and tip frequency, you kind of start to know what a potential new hire might expect in digital tips on a given day, given week, given month. So reinforcing that aspect of it's been huge because at the end of the day, like I said, we're employee perk, a benefit, and that's what they signed up for. So then we can reinforce that with these data points. We can also call out special moments too, like $1,000 tip. So when the team shares this with their team, then it creates a little friendly competition. People make sure their cards are on display. And so forth. So awesome to see. And then we do some graphs, some charts on kind of month over month growth. Again, this is looking at the quarter. And again, this is all in the body of the email, so very easy to scroll through. We highlight some top locations here. I think what we're going to do kind of to evolve this is include all locations, not just top, because we do get some feedback from clients. After some time, after they've seen this for a few months, they're like, what about the ones that aren't performing well? What do we do there? So we'll include the full list here to be able to shine a light on those that might need a little bit more nudges internally to revive and to turn it back on. Then we highlight some top earners for the quarter. And when the guest leaves a tip, they have the option to leave a review. So there's a lot of great feedback, positive comments that the operators can use in their back pocket for like performance reviews, spotlight recognition, and so forth. And then we end it with a nice thank you and typically some educational pieces, some awareness around, account maintenance, maybe refills on cards, and or any maybe add-ons like for this one, if they want to link Google reviews or TripAdvisor, then they can do so. So this is something they wouldn't maybe know about, but in the email, they hear about it. And then we get a lot of comments, a lot of feedback on this to turn it on. So it becomes a great upsell opportunity for us after we're educating them on the new features and enhancements.
So quick question, Brendan. For the
Yeah.
metrics, like all the reviews, the earners, and things like that,
Yeah.
when y'all were creating the email for the first time, did you just copy and paste metrics from the deck, or did you find that you had to tweak them when you're putting it in the email?
So we didn't quite have to tweak them too much. The way the queries were written, we were able to put some formatting in here, like comma format and so forth that we needed to do just to get it to be even and consistent.
Mhm.
So there was some continuity there. But yeah, with the way the queries were written, we did tweak a couple of things where initially we had some stuff that was coming out as like just text or rows and then turned it into a table,
Mhm.
for example. So
Got
there was
it.
some like formatting we did after some trial and error, but for the most part, it was really easy to implement and to adjust what we needed to adjust.
Got it. Okay. I think that's great to hear I feel like a lot of companies have a lot of decks and meeting decks. So knowing
Mhm.
that they can just repurpose with a few tweaks, visual tweaks, and send an email version, like
Yeah. So
simpler.
this, like the deck we were creating that had all these data points was like 10 slides or something, but you fit it in the body of an email and like it doesn't have to be that long. So it's just quicker for the recipient, easier to share too. Then they can just forward it with like a little screenshot of the section they want to screenshot. So it's become
Awesome.
awesome. Yeah.
And then one last question, the education part you have at the end.
Yeah.
Is that something y'all are changing out on a quarterly basis, or is it
Yeah,
more?
we typically change it out depending on what's new. Some things we kind of keep as constant, like the reminder about refills, like a missing card in that world is a missed opportunity. So just having consistency and continuity between room to room. So that's always in there. And we get so many replies to this about refill orders after this email goes out. So they kind of need that reminder. They're like, oh yeah, let's get some more cards. So we'll keep that one in. And then for something like adding on social media or maybe scheduling or whatever it may be, those are things that can easily be swapped in and out based on the time of the year.
Awesome. And so cool to hear about the replies.
The replies are phenomenal. Like the amount of feedback we get about this is amazing. And that was, again, surprising because they have access to the dashboard. They could go in, pull these numbers ad hoc at any point, but it's not happening for whatever reason. So to
Everyone
reinforce
likes
it and to show
that.
it to them is they're blown away by it, which is fantastic. And yeah, people are asked like, are we going to get this every month? And so they look forward to it, which is really cool.
Yeah, I think we sometimes forget that we're not the only product that our customers are using, and the more we can do
Yeah,
in a civil platter, they actually
for
want
sure.
it.
Yeah, because they're on the go. Yeah, they're busy and it's something that can just slip through the cracks. And then, as I mentioned too, there's so many additional folks involved with the program that might not be in the day-to-day operations of it. So to see this kind of summed up in a nice package is music to their ears. Awesome. So that was kind of then we have a similar version, like I said, for like a hotel location where it's just their hotel. Um, let me see if I can move that. There we go. And then this is one of the emails we talked about in terms of, do we target low performers, dormant ones that we want to revive? Absolutely. So we say, you're a little bit lower than our benchmark or than our average. Are there any reasons why? A reminder about refills. And then pivoting tip charts in our scenario was like, okay, I think you're using this kind of solution. Let's pivot to what our top performers do. And we've been able to convert almost all clients to a new solution that's made a world of difference for them. Again, there's more consistency from room to room. There's removing variables on the kind of solution they were on before. So these are fantastic. And in addition, with these low performer emails, we get a lot of feedback as to why. So, maybe the hotel's undergoing renovations. Maybe it's seasonal. They're open 6 months a year. So then we're able to take that feedback. I created a field in Salesforce where we can capture it, like low dips or whatever it is, base business decline. And then when finance or anybody asks about specific locations, like what's happening here, they've kind of gone down 50% last week. Oh, they're seasonal. We can easily reference that field. So this has been awesome to get that data and that insights too into different trends that happen year over year with these clients.
I feel like y'all some emails are so effective that you're actually getting these kinds of responses and insights. But I think this is also one of the very few emails I've seen that actually leverages benchmarking information of like, hey, you want to be one of the best, then you should do this too.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So it's been awesome to see those kind of like cross sells, if you will, or upsells. And that's another thing that happens, especially with the achiever emails, is that sometimes when we send it to the parent level, they're like, oh, let's just put this in all the locations we have. So then it adds, expansion opportunities as well. As we mentioned with the onboarding in new clients, previously we were manually taking a snapshot of their progress, and then it would take a lot of time because we have so many clients on a week to week, and then send that as an email. Now we're able just to schedule it so it runs silently in the background, triggers on specific days and times. And it has reminders in there. So we created like a one size fits all for the clients. So this has been huge for adoption and onboarding to be able to call out the progress and some kind of like maintenance things that they need to do with the account in terms of success moving forward. But again, everything's in the body of the email. So very easy, very clean. And these have been great too. Yeah, we get a lot of feedback on this. And then they're primed and ready for those monthly reviews from there.
One last question on your overall email strategy. Which of these emails did you implement first? Was it the monthly business review or the onboarding one? Where
It was
did
the monthly business review was the very first one we did. In fact, it was a
you?
year in review. So we just based on the timing of when we got launched, we were able to do the full year in review. So it was incredible for everybody to see that for the first time, to see the stats for the past 12 months.
Yeah.
So that was the first one. And then we were able to kind of repackage that and remix it a little bit
Mhm.
for monthly and quarterly. We changed a few things, like the monthly doesn't have the chart with month over month or anything like that, but the quarterly does. And we're just continuously adding kind of new data points that we can implement and put in there. So it just growing.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for Brendan. Thank you so much, Brendan, for sharing all of this. Like, I think you're also one of our first emails on our series, and you've shown us multiple beyond just the monthly review. But yeah, this has been awesome. Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure, Bex. Yeah, thank you so much and appreciate your partnership. This has been awesome and we really much enjoy it.
Awesome. Thanks everyone for watching. We'll see you in our next episode.
Thanks. Take care.